Morning guys, Shadney back with another process video for my For the Love, or not my, but for the Love of Crafting and Sharing hop. A bunch of us YouTubers join in together and we have a theme every month. The theme for this month is scrap attack. So we are going through all our scraps and using them to make a fun layout. So I've pulled out a ton of scraps. You can see, and I use almost all of them. And then I pull out an older sticker sheet that I've had for a while and never broke into, as well as some other random scraps like little pieces of little pieces of chipboard that I haven't used before, that I had stuck to, what's it called? Wax paper up there in the corner, you can see, and just floating around. So I pulled out those, and then I had these hearts that I'd cut out of map paper, and they were from a layout. It was the background. I did a bunch of hearts out of the background and then used that background as the layout. And then I had these, and I didn't want to throw them away because they were so pretty and I knew I'd use them eventually. So pulled those out, and then I pulled some little tags and stuff like that, and frames and stuff that I have floating around. I have a little like container that if I pull something and then don't use it and don't feel like putting it back because I'm lazy, then I will just chunk it in that bowl, and then it sits on my desk so I can kind of flip through. If it catches my eye, I can add it to a layout. So I pulled a bunch of stuff like that, all these scraps. So these little frames are from a piece of paper, from I think a paper pad. Anyways, I pulled them for something a long time ago and never used them. So I just cut the center out to use them as actual frames, and then I'm going to adhere them to my photo and trim the photo down. And it was, I tend to not use frames very much because I kind of forget about them, and then my photos aren't the right size to go in them, and I don't know, I have issues. So I worked out perfectly that these photos would fit in the frame, so I went ahead and jumped on that opportunity. So go ahead and trim the excess of the photos down right there, and then from there I'm going to go ahead and adhere the photos together so that I can work with them as a unit. I'm going to add craft foam behind one of the photos because I want one popped up a little more than the other, just to add some interest. So I have a little piece right there, just gonna stick it down and then fill in that gap. And then I'm gonna add a tiny bit of adhesive down the corner where they're gonna overlap so that they can stick together. And when I have two photos, if I mat them together, I like them to be straight. If I mat them separately, I like them to be kind of wonky, if that makes sense. And frames aren't really matting, but kind of. So I wanted them to be a little bit wonky. I don't know why. That's how my brain works. So now I'm just going to start in on all of my scraps. I have this nice big stack, and I use most of them. Not all of most of them, but a good amount of most of them. So I'm starting from the top down and then just layering and layering and layering. I usually already have like my background paper picked out and stuff like that, but in this instance, there's a whole issue. So you'll see in a minute why I don't have background paper. In my head, I was going to use this white paper because in my head, I thought I'm only going to use scraps for this whole page other than white paper. So I was going, and I never use white cardstock for my backgrounds, and I should know better because I don't like it on my pages. They never turn out well on white cardstock, and I always end up changing it. So you'll see in a minute I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm just going through and just adding paper behind each layer, and they're all a little different. I'm just working with what I have size-wise and just trimming off what needs to be trimmed off. And each layer I am going in with my gray ink and just inking the edges very lightly, just so that you can see the distinction between each layer, and I don't have to worry about not being able to tell like if two papers, their patterns overlap, sometimes you can't tell where that paper ends or starts. So that gray just adds a nice layer of distinction so that you can see where each individual paper is, and it kind of imitates like a little bit of a shadow. So like I said, I'm just using what I have. You can see like that little wood piece. When I added that, it already had a tear down the side, so I just used that on the side so it would emphasize that. And then some pieces are to one side or the other, or only across the bottom or only across the top, stuff like that. This little tag that I pulled out and I'm trimming it is from a paper pad. I had used some, I like them for layering, and I'd use some and not all of them, so I put those in the little bucket up there. And then I pull out, I think it's a We Are Memory Keepers punch, I'm not for sure, but it cuts these little hole reinforcers, and I just punched one of these papers to match so it coordinates a little better, because when I punched that hole, it lost some of its reinforcer. It just didn't look right. It looked kind of weird. So I'm just layering that in there and doing that at kind of an angle. I will go in, I don't know if I do it now. Yep, I do it now. And add some baker's twine, because I do not like naked holes in tags. I will almost always add baker's twine, and then I just loop that over to the side and then add some staples to it, kind of hold it in place. And then just continuing on with all these layers. Today's video is going to be rather long because there's a lot to it. You can see I'm adding a lot of layers, and I keep that in just so you can see the process. But then there's also some footage that you'll see in a minute that is kind of crazy and unnecessary, but I kept it in just so you see the process. Still going in and adding more layers and more and more and more. It gets rather large, which is kind of cool. Oh, at this point I do add some more foam just to give it some more dimension. So there's a sheet of foam, and then I'll adhere that down and then keep going from there. And that just gives it more texture and dimension. If you don't like a lot of dimension, you can layer all of these pieces flat. I love dimension, so I like adding foam and making everything really chunky and fat. And then on this, I lay that ruler down and then just tear across the bottom edge just to give it a little bit of texture and just a little bit of interest, because you don't want all of your mats to be exact same squares or it's super, super boring. So that's why it works out really well that some are only to the left, some are to the right, some are to the bottom, some are to the top. It gives it a nice amount of interest. So this one I am going to go in and do a fishtail banner too, because I have a nice long piece, and I'm just making it super simple. I just folded it and cut it in that way. And then I'm going to, again, ink all the edges and then adhere it down. Okay, so I might sound a little different now. I was recording this morning, or the voiceover part this morning, and now it is evening time because India woke up, and of course you can't record a voiceover when you have a 4-year-old around because she likes to help. So I'm still just layering and adding more little scraps and pieces. These little strips I can just tuck under the edge, so it looks like a longer piece than it really is, and just adds another little piece. While I keep adding layers and layers and layers, because obviously you get the point of how to add layers in there, I was just gonna tell you, if you check the description box down below, I will have links to all of the other YouTubers that are joining in on the hop this month. I think we're up to maybe 15. I'm not sure. A couple more have joined this month, so I'm really excited to see their videos and their takes on the scrap challenge. So be sure to check down below to get links to everybody else that is joining in, and you can go watch and like and comment on all of their videos and follow them, because they are all awesome scrappers as well. It's really cool because we've got a really nice selection of different styles and different, like some people who like to use multiple photos. I obviously like using fewer photos just because I tend to have fewer good photos, or I like to emphasize on certain photos or whatever. We have people who are double page, single page, very elaborate, over the top, lots of layers like I do. Very simple and more clean lined layouts. So a good variety of ladies that are all joining in, and it's really cool to see everybody's take on the different challenges. So be sure to check everybody else's out, and of course, like, comment, subscribe to everybody. When you like, comment, and subscribe on everybody's videos, sorry, India's Sven is talking as well. When you like, comment, and subscribe to people's videos, it is a free way to help your YouTubers to get more views, and tells YouTube that you liked the content, so they will try to share it more often. So that is always very, very helpful. So back to all these layers and bits and bobs. I did pull out this tag and I trimmed off the edge because I'm tucking it under where there's some foam, and it obviously is just not gonna tuck under there very well because it's blocking it. So I stick that under the edge. I go ahead and start pulling out these hearts. And then I'm inking the edges of those as I go as well. And I'm just kind of placing them. I wasn't really sure exactly what I was doing yet, but I am going to go ahead and adhere this one to the photo cluster because it can be. I've not done my background yet. I'm not adhering anything to the background yet, just working on this cluster for now. So, and at this point, I'm kind of trying to decide how much more I want to layer back there. Also, kind of starting to think about what the overall layout's going to look like after I get all these layers adhered. But as of right now, how I have it in my head, which wasn't really, I mean, I really wasn't sure at this point what I was still going to do to the background. I just wanted to do some mixed media to make it not so white. And I was trying to use white cardstock so that I wasn't pulling in any new pattern paper, rather just using all my scraps. But you will see in a minute, it just does not work out well. This right here are some scraps from like a pinata kind of element that I made that I never used on another layout. And they were just scraps that they were just set aside. They weren't really in my scraps, but I saw them while I was gathering all my supplies and thought they could be cool to kind of use in a different way. I don't usually use fringe like that other than making little pinata looking pieces. So this is kind of a cool technique to add some texture and just another element to the page. I went ahead and traced the top of each piece so I could make sure the placement was going to look right, and just making sure I knew where everything was going to go. So now I'm going to pull in these other hearts and kind of play with them and try to, am trying to use all the hearts up, but keep it kind of on the left side of the page, like scattered down the left. And scattering them at this point, I'm kind of trying to decide what my background's going to look like, or where I want to place my background mixed media stuff. So I go ahead and I'm pulling in a couple of these chipboard pieces. I end up only using that big round one, but I don't think I adhere it down yet. I am using my pencil to mark around kind of where my photo is going, just so I know how big to do my mixed media, to be able that it's actually seen on the background rather than just being covered up. So at this point, I'm going to do the packaging technique with some gold Heidi shine, and it really just did not look good and was not working the way I had it in my head that it would. So I just keep messing and wasting the Heidi shine, just going and going. And then after I realized this really isn't doing much for the background or for me how I like it, so I decide I am using my heat gun to try to dry it first of all, because then I'm going to try to do some stenciling, some texture paste. So hold on, I'm going to fast forward through the drying process, and then I'll show you the next part. Okay, so I cut out the drying because that was boring and didn't really do much. So I pull out some Doodlebug glitter texture paste, and I really like this texture paste in general. I have gold and silver and clear, I think, and maybe pink. Anyways, and then this color, which I think is going to be kind of a corally color when it dries, which would match some of my layers. It doesn't dry coral. It stays this weird orange color. It does not look good. I do not like how it turned out. I'm even here holding my photo over it, trying to decide to make sure, and I decide I hated it. So I pulled out this really pretty paper, and it is from the new Maggie Holmes Sweet Story collection. I love this collection. I'm dying for all the embellishments to come to scrapbook.com, and I've been stalking it, trying to get all the embellishments, but nothing is in stock yet because of all the COVID-19 stuff. So I've gotten some of the paper, but not a lot. They don't even have like the paper pads yet. It's just the individual pages. So, but this is from that collection. This is one of the pages. So again, I'm using the fringe and marking, and then I go to my sewing machine and stitch all the fringe down, starting at the bottom and working up. So here I am, I'm just trimming all my strings and just trying to clean that up. And then I'm going to take washi tape and run washi tape across each row of stitching, because that's how I like to secure my stitching on the back. I used to always go in and pull both strings to the back and then washi tape them down, but that is a lot of effort and I just couldn't do anymore. So now I just trim them, and then on the back I'll just add washi tape either across the whole thing or just at the ends where the where it finishes, where it starts and finishes, just to keep it from pulling all the way out. So go ahead and adhere my photo cluster right there just down to the page. And even if you don't like a lot on your layout, even this right here and then add a title would be a great layout just in and of itself. But I am a maximalist, and if you don't know, I'm a little bit of a hoarder, so I have to have everything on this page. So I will just keep going. I am trying to make sure exactly where I want all of these hearts to be laid, and again, just keeping it down the left side. That heart that's overlapping at the top, overlapping the photo cluster, is not going to go there. It's holding a place to go behind there. It'll tuck behind it, but yeah. Anyway, still was deciding where everything went. I am going to go in and start inking all the hearts, and I'm going to fast forward that because that is super boring and you obviously know how to ink things. So now I've pulled the hearts up and pulled out some Heidi Shine, and this is a really bright pink that I just got not that long ago. I ordered it off of Amazon because they've obviously stopped selling Heidi Shine or making Heidi Shine, so I've been trying to pick up bottles and colors as I can when I find them for not crazy outrageous prices. So I got this super bright pink. It's really pretty. And I'm just doing some splatters across the background where I want my embellishing to go. Then I'm going to start arranging my hearts yet again and clean up all my splatter mess and then start adhering things down. And I'm just adhering them down with tape runner. It's not anything fancy or big deal. I kind of wish I would have gone back and added some stitching just for some more like just texture and interest, but it is not necessarily. They obviously are going to stay in place. They are just pieces of paper. And I get questions sometimes about adhesive. This adhesive is from Stampin' Up. I can link to my website down below where you can order Stampin' Up products from me if you would like to. And then I get a small commission off of it, obviously, being a demonstrator. But really, they do have very good products. Even if you don't order from me, they do have very good products. Sorry about that. If you heard that, my husband was laughing in the background and I had to go tell him that I was still voiceovering. He didn't realize. So I have got all the hearts adhered down, I think, at this point. I am going to go in and add this chipboard piece, but I'm trimming out a piece of it so that it can tuck under the edge there where the foam is. It won't fit under, so I had to trim out a piece of it, and then obviously going in with Nuvo glue to adhere that down because it's American Crafts chipboard and it doesn't stick. So now I'm pulling out this sticker sheet. It is one that I've had for a while. I got it Tuesday morning. It's really cute. I just haven't really thought to use it. So I thought it would be good to pull it out and try to use some of it on this page. That element that says "This is everything," I did cut in half because I don't know why. It just was weird to me that it was all one piece. So I thought it was better cut apart to make it look like word strips. And then I'm going in and adding some just little bits and pieces, some little tiny hearts, some little word stickers, and just scattering them. I'm doing some embellishing down there at the bottom right where the chipboard and where the "This is everything" stickers are, over to the bottom left a little bit on the side, and then at the top is where my 3 clusters of embellishments are going to go. They're not really clustered so much as they're just areas, but I'm just arranging, trying to add some little hearts to each section and just add fun little pieces to the whole layout. So, and I think that is, no, more. And then that label I do trim off because it won't tuck behind because I use a lot of adhesive. I just like to make sure everything's going to stay stuck. So I always make sure to use a ton of adhesive. I know some people don't, but it is just my preference. So, and then this little guy, I end up tucking right there. No. I thought I tucked it on the left, but it goes to the right. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now I am going to pull out some little flare buttons. These are from Humble and Create shop. She also does digital elements that you can purchase and that coordinate with the flare. I just don't tend to use digital pieces, but her flare is amazing, so I just use it for the flare. And then I pull out some Nuvo drops. I pulled in this green to try to tie in. There is a layer of green towards the top of all my layering. So I tried to pull that green in just to tie some more of that green in as well. And I'm just doing a little bit in each of those 3 areas where I am embellishing. And then I pull out these little wood veneer arrows, are super cute, and I have a bunch of and never really think to use, so I'm trying to use all my wood veneers a lot more. And I'm just doing a little grouping up at the top to point towards the photo, and a little grouping at the bottom to point towards the "This is everything," which ends up being my title for the layout. And then I'm using Nuvo adhesive just to adhere those in place. So there we go. And then, sorry, when you're recording a voiceover, I do it on my phone, and there's a little box across the bottom of the screen, so I can't always tell exactly what I'm doing on screen. So sometimes I'm like, so now I'm doing something, but I don't know what it is. So that's why I sound like that sometimes. But now I'm using Tombow Mono adhesive. It is another Stampin' Up! Product that you can get in the link below in my description. Tombow Mono, I know a ton of people use it and love it, and I never tried it. It's not my favorite regular wet adhesive because when it dries, it stays sticky, but it is perfect for acrylic pieces and sequins because it's like a glue dot. It has some give to it. So and it stays sticky. So whenever it dries, and it's in your album or you're flipping through, your pieces won't pop off of it. It's really good for stuff like that. So, I'm just added a bunch of dots of glue all around the layout in my little clusters, and then going back and adding my sequins over the top of them. And just a couple more, or one more. And then that is pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really love how this layout turned out. It makes me want to dig into my scraps and do another challenge like this. It was really fun. It used a lot of stuff I wouldn't necessarily normally put together, but it was really cool. So I really love how it came together. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe if you want to see more, and maybe leave me a comment below letting me know what one of your favorite ways to scrap bust is, and use up all your scraps. So thank you again. Go watch all the other YouTubers and have a wonderful day, and happy scrapping. Bye.